This episode of Warchant is sponsored by McMahon Cove Gilly. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Go back to what we talked about earlier, I was kind of trying to preach at a little bit, I guess, the local parents and all that kind of stuff about being invested in the program and giving your kids an opportunity to be influenced by the men that are in the community. And I just thinking back to my childhood, both football as well as outside of football, just men who kind of poured into my life and always kind of had time for me. And one example, these two guys sitting here, their dad, Philip Cooper, means the world to me. So when I was a kid, Philip's a big football player, great football player, by the way. And so he loved North Jackson football, not just, way before y'all even played and then way beyond, right? It's just one of them men of the community that, that's a man's man, and you knew he was a ball player. But when I was a kid, Dad would work every other weekend at Bowyer, and I loved deer hunting and all these Coopers, big deer hunters. And man, there's 4 or 5 different Coopers that always had time for me when Dad had to work. I couldn't drive. Hey, you want to ride down to the hunting club in Paint Rock Valley this weekend or whatever? Well, obviously during football season was when deer season was going on. So we'd be wound up about North Jackson football, but we'd also be deer hunting at the same time. And I'm probably like in the 10th or 11th grade, something like that. I wasn't quite old enough to drive, maybe in the 10th grade. We went to Paint Rock Valley one day, and we've been talking about football all the way down there. A lot of times just be me and your dad. We'd ride down there, just be us two when y'all were younger. And
I wasn't going to go in.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to play with me.
But we talked about various stuff all the way down there. We've been talking about football all the way down there, about North Jackson, what you going to do, what you going to play, and all this. We got a little bit jazzed, on the way down there. Buster was actually with us on this particular trip. But we'd always pull up at the foot of the mountain and unload the four-wheeler and do all that kind of stuff. We've been talking about all that football, and Philip was kind of jazzed up. He's a big old man. And I get out of the damn truck, and just walk over. I ain't doing nothing, just minding my business. Tying my boots up all of a sudden, just boom! Just form tackles me in the mud. And it just got all over me just immediately. Like, well, he's way bigger than I am, but I'm a little more athletic than you are at this point, And he's wallering around in the mud after he form tackles me, and I'm in a damn stance. Before he ever even gets up, I'm ready. Like this right here, like you get on your feet and see what happens. And before he can even, I didn't let him get all the way up and get all his form. I wasn't that stupid, right? Because he's that strong. But he's still about halfway up the way. Man, I speared him right in the freaking ribs right there. I'm talking about form tackled him, wadded him up. He's like, damn, I should have done that.
No wonder he never told that story.
Yeah.
I've never heard it.
Ask him about it.
Philip, like what? He was what did he play?
78 season.
78 season. What position?
He played tackle on the football field. He played point guard on the basketball team and shortstop on the baseball team.
Wow.
As a tackle.
That sounds
Name
about,
me anybody
sounds
that ever
about
done
like the Cooper.
That's a combination.
Sounds about like a
That's
Cooper.
just that 10 years.
Right tackle,
point guard, shortstop.
Yep. Who doesn't do that? Steph Curry.
Ask him about us tackling each other in the mud down there at the foot of the mountain. He'll remember that, I guarantee you.
I'm sad you talk about their dad. There's one story and we touched on it the other day when I seen you, that I can't hardly remember because I was so small. The hot dog sandwich story. You were in the Jeep, correct? What do you recall of that? And this is y'all are all
how it started.
I remember a little bit of it.
You were on the baseball field. That was just between me and you where that started.
I remember vaguely, but I was a young
when you were playing Little League Baseball.
I thought Buster was taking us to get something to eat.
No, this was at Charlie Smith Field. I'm trying to think circa what year that was, but you were playing Little League Baseball probably 8, 9, something like that. I was a teenager. And I just, for whatever reason, I loved the game of baseball too, played a bunch of baseball, and I just helped coach y'all's team just as here's a high school guy, come in here and pour into some of these kids and all this kind of stuff. And I was working with the infielders, I was still shortstop at that time, and you were playing shortstop. And we were working on something, hitting infield or whatever, and we'd been at practice for a long time. And I said something to the effect of, man, I'm starving to death. I can't wait for practice to be over with. And you said, not me. I had a hot dog sandwich before I come down here. And that's where it started. That's when I started calling you that, was that day.
But it's funny because, was talking about just the group that we have here, and you talk about how much their dad, meant to you. I can remember Blake and Robert coming and spending the night. I'd be spending overnight in Dawn's. And I remember y'all coming in, and I can remember Robert, he'd come in and see me. He'd say, oh, God, no, because I'd pick on them because they were the only people that were smaller than me. Because I can remember that. So a lot of Robert and Blake's toughness, I want to take a lot of credit for.
There you go.
They were the only people I could pick on back then.
You did. I tell you, that time, I don't remember all of it because I passed out, obviously. But the rear naked choke you put me in that time, I mean, I took a lot away from that. The form was great, but I don't remember. I woke up.
We watched a lot of wrestling back then.
Yeah.
Chad was talking about, but I can remember being kids and like when Chad was playing, which would have been obvious time when it was, and we would go to ball games, and Mom and Daddy had this old red Astro van. Oh, that's so. And we'd load up.
Six, if it makes you feel any better, Chad.
Yeah.
We'd go there. We'd load up.
I'm aware.
See, yeah, I mean,
That's what I was going to ask. What year were y'all? How old were y'all?
I was 6 or 7 years old.
I was born in 86.
I was like 10, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
84, 85.
But,
85.
Yeah.
So Chad was like a big brother because we was always around Chad. And Mom and Daddy we'd go to Buster and Suzette's, we'd pick them up. They'd go on road trips to the road games all the time. And that's just, I have that memory, and just a lot of times, and he'd always have a big D and a big fence with him.
Yeah,
always have that. He'd have that. He'd have that D, and he'd have that fence, and he'd put that Astro.
Danny Rich was it him and
Danny Rich.
They load that D and that fence up, you knew it was on.
But Buster still got the picture frame after the championship game in '93. Moody and Bubby Warren picked him up and was carrying him big as he was, him holding that the D or the fence, whichever he had.
I was about to
got
say
that picture frame after that, and that's
because that was on that segment of that video of the '93 game at the end when all the communities out there, and it shows them holding him up.
They done that even after you had graduated, right?
Yeah, they done it for a few years.
For sure.
Oh
For a
yeah,
few
yeah,
years.
yeah. They were still big supporters.
Because I can remember that. No, I don't remember a lot when I was. I'm not him. I can't remember shit when I was in
Coach got
diapers.
that well.
Hell, if there was a cornhole tournament this weekend in Bridgeport and Buster was there, you'd hear him getting on the officials.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
I still hear him at softball games.
Greatest little league
everything.
umpire ever lived.
Yeah.
Buster Appleton.
Yeah, that's not what Barry Phillips said. When we were, we used to, me and Dad and Granddad would call them baseball games around Charlie Smith Field and all that. And I won't ever forget one day we were getting ready to call them. The three of us were working whatever games together. I was standing there, and Barry Phillips walked up and looked at us with just a bunch of disgust in his eyes. He said, 3 generations of bad calls. Just walked out. Barry. We laughed.
We're talking about Ultimate Chief dads, though. Hell, it's hard to beat the Ultimate Chief dad, which would be, I guess, your dad.
Your daddy.
100%.
Darn
I
right.
agree with that.
I mean,
The greatest.
the big
Absolutely.
chief. I mean,
Yeah.
I tell you, while we were here last week, and
I bet he was in awe.
and it was awesome because I was telling it. That's the first time I've really had a chance to talk to Coach Lolly in several, like 15 years, something like that. He was still at Auburn. This is when Eli Manning was at Auburn or at Ole Miss, and they were playing at Auburn. Last time I talked to him, but just being in the same room with him and Warney. And when I see Warney, every time now I call him Warney because that's how Coach Lolly says Warney. Well, sure enough, I got to hear him say this. How you doing, Warney? And it was like, bam! Yeah, I hadn't heard that in years. It was awesome.
Going back, and you kind of touched on earlier about kids growing up wanting to play for the program. Just my kind of little version to it, but now it's all about cows. But when I was a kid, between my dad and my brother, all we talked was football, and which he graduated with. He played with Zach and Jeff, but I remember going to the '96 game. I was 10 years old. Scottsboro was undefeated, North Jackson was undefeated, battle in the valley. But I remember thinking, man, I would love to be a part of this, something like this one day. That really did it for me, and I did get to experience, something. I'm not going to say it's the same, but pretty damn close, But with that 04 game, but if everybody got to experience playing football like I did, having the older brother, like I did. Coop, you can probably relate to this some, but he was at every practice. He stayed on my ass constantly. He was the first one to meet me in the field house. We got put out of the playoffs. And just like, going back to you, people you looked up to and stuff like that, like it made you want to play for North Jackson.
Yeah.
We kind of got away from that a little bit. But like that whole experience for me, man, it was great.
I know it may sound corny, but no shit, for the longest. And also the 96 game was one that he touched on it. I can remember it today from the stands. That was no different to me than going to watch like Mississippi State and Alabama, and I'm seriously, that's the way I looked at it.
What was
it was a big deal.
Wore our North Jackson jerseys
Absolutely.
that had made it
Yes.
on Fridays.
I had the dang
Shout out.
I had Keith
We should have done it. Should have done it earlier. Should have done it earlier.
And
Thank you,
Story,
Coach.
rest
Thank
in
you,
peace,
Coach.
Coach Story. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bridgeport legend.
And I'll kind of touch on this a little bit, and some coaches may not want to hear this, but when we played Scottsboro my senior year, we lost 2 very close regular season games. Lost to number 3 Gadsden in 5A at the time in overtime. Then we lost a game to East Limestone. We had no business losing. It was 3 touchdowns better than them. But when we played Scottsboro, come up here ranked number 3 in 5A also. It was 9-0.
Very good team that year. Had a
Very good team.
Yes.
But I already knew that was my damn state championship. That was my senior year. That meant more to me. And I'll be honest with you, this is the way I looked at it. And there's been some damn good teams get beat by Scottsboro, but I always looked at it if I lost to Scottsboro, my whole senior year would have been a failure. I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's just the way I felt about it. And we weren't going to lose, and we didn't. 30-27.
What was a great game.
that was a
It
great
was.
We had the best player in the state, and he took over that
Boy,
night.
he did.
And I'll tell you somebody
With a
else.
shoulder that wasn't even in place.
I think
though.
Matt Bernard had a
Matt
Bernard
Bernard,
played
you
great.
never hear about it, but he played his ass off. They used to have the stats on the website, but they took
He
them
was
off.
14 out of 19. throwing
He
the football
had
that
a
night.
hell of a game. Matt Bernard did.
Matt Bernard's good, guys.
Yeah, he's damn good.
Yeah, I
Very
think
good.
when you think over the years, I think Matt Bernard flies under the radar as one
He
of the
does.
better quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about just
He was a sophomore. As
He
a
was a
sophomore.
ball player.
Yeah.
just players in general? Like for some reason, Kane Cooper, there's some stuff Kane Cooper did.
Amazing.
Yeah.
2 or 3, and some of them are plays where he wasn't even the. There was a play. God, I can't remember who they were playing, and I don't remember if it was I think it may have been an interception that happened where he slides, gets up.
That's Gunners.
Gunners.
He was at Gunners.
I was a
Playing
gun player.
safety.
I'll go into depth on that game a little bit. When I was at Gunnersville, we were the best 2 teams in the region that year, and like me and 2 other coaches went and watched North Jackson play Madison Academy, and the rest of them went and watched somebody else. But Kane was playing quarterback to start that year out, and he, as the game went on, he ended up moving to receiver, and it looked like that was what they were going to go to, because at first they wasn't sure, I think, between should Kane play quarterback or should Kid Grider play quarterback. Then it ended up, Kane being receiver.
Kid was a freshman that year.
Yeah,
wasn't
Kid
he?
was a
He'd been
freshman.
I think that was
Well, go to that game, and Kane's he's throwing the ball, and he's made some good passes that game. And I'll shout out DeQuan too on this game, because DeQuan dropped about 5 that night.
Yeah.
Hit him dead in the hands. Just dropped.
You're talking about the Madison Academy.
Madison Academy game. That's the game I'm talking about. But then they put Kane receiver. They threw him a slip screen and he went about 60 for a touchdown. And I'm riding home with a guy I was coaching with at Gunnersville at the time. I said, if we don't stop 4, we're not going to have a prayer winning that football game. And we go in to break down before we played North Jackson. I gave this the first out of all the years I'd played North Jackson up to that point. It's the first chance where I said, I got shot beat my alma mater. And that would have meant the world to me. You don't know how to. We talked about the Scottsboro game the next year when I was at Scottsboro. But this one, I really felt like I had a shot to win. So I was like, I told the head coach, I said, we got to stop 4. I said, whatever you do, whatever you want to put in this game plan, I said, we got to stop Kane. And after watching film, he agreed, and we devised a plan. Kane only had like 3 catches that night. We weren't going to let him get the ball. because our whole time, was like, the Lawrence kids dropped 10 balls already this year. If anybody's going to beat us, he's going the freshman quarterback and the other receiver's going to beat us.
Yeah.
Well, guess what happened? The freshman quarterback and the other receiver beat us.
Yeah. Y'all turned it over 5 times.
We did turn it over lots. No, we run the opening kickoff back for a touchdown that game. But yeah, we didn't let Kane beat us. But I'm telling you right now, pound for pound, I'll shout out to him. Kane Cooper's one of the best athletes that's ever played this place.
He's fun to watch.
Got that
Pound for pound, no doubt.
Well, he's one of those, not saying I made him. He was athletic. We know that. Yeah. But, anybody that knows us, Nick Kane and Brady, I always looked at them kind of like little brothers. And, Kane was always right up under me. Loved playing sports. Still loves sports. He's still coaching now, but he just, when he was little, he had calf muscles. We knew early on, but he loved it. He loved it, and he was good at all of it, really. Now, every time I went and watched him play basketball, that ruined his night. He couldn't shoot. He could not shoot if I was there. But he's a really good baseball player. We all know, really good football player. But I probably went too far with it sometimes, making sure he knew what it was about. And I think he got it. He's one of those that kind of come on later.
Well, he loves it. You can tell he's still around.
Yeah, and it still matters.
Still matters too. That's right.
And he's up
I'll
there.
tell you what, Brady's senior year.
Yes, Brady was good.
Brady's senior year, I was very proud.
If Brady would have, what Brady did his senior year, had he done that his junior year and had another year after that,
yeah,
I think you talk about him a lot more, man. That son got make some plays.
Why did you go and just think back to that Scottsburg game? He had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, a kick return for a touchdown. They had 3 pick sixes that game.
Mm-hmm.
But he really showed out, and I think he scored 16 touchdowns his senior year. And it was a tough act for him because we mentioned Kane, but Brady, his senior year, man, he was a threat. And they weren't that great that year, but Brady had a pretty dang good year.
I'll tell you one more quick story on Kane. This is because when Kane was in 8th grade, I was coaching here, and then when he went up to freshman when I went to DAR, but I was coaching junior high baseball when Kane was in 8th grade. And speaking of how great an athlete he was, I'm not going to even try to mimic what he did in this ball game, but this is still, to this day, one of the greatest athletic plays I've ever seen. He's playing shortstop, and Austin Blevins, another solid former player at this school, is playing center field. And there's one of those tweener balls hitting that triangle between, second base and center field, right between shortstop, second base, center field. 3 people are converging on. Kane's playing short. Here comes Austin. Ball's right in between. Kane's running with his head up like this, and he sees Austin at his periphery running at him. And as the ball's coming down, Kane's going to have to make a Willie Mays play. He hollers, I swear, slide, Austin. Austin belly flop slides. Now, Kane's in 8th grade now. Austin belly flop slides on the ground like he's going in head first to the base. And as he's sliding, Kane jumps over him. Catches a ball over his shoulder in 8th grade. It was the damnedest thing I ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, his 9th grade year, I had my shoulder worked on first round of the playoffs. Let's talk about him getting in the game, and he played a little bit at just kind of sparingly. Well, first time he ever touched the ball in high school, he scores a touchdown. They throw him a ball, and my phone starts blowing up. I'm at the house, and wasn't listening to it. Epic fail on my part. I didn't go. I wasn't feeling real good. I just had surgery. Well, Owen texted me. He said, "You listen? You hear?" I said, "No." He said, "You can't draw it up no better than that." I said, "What?" He said, "Kane's first time touching it, he scored." Well, he had a pretty good game that night. And, of course,
we're like 20. What are you?
Do what?
20-something? What number was he?
19.
19.
He was
19.
So that was for Ryan Leroy. Anyhow, of course, he went on and done a lot of good things there. Watching him grow up and play sports was pretty fun, because I didn't have a little brother. I was Stacy's little brother, and that was awesome. But I always looked at them boys as my little brothers, and Nick Cooper's just a totally different story. Anybody
He's all our little brothers.
Love him.
I look at it.
Love to give him a high five right now.
You can.
You better
You
come
think
with
about
Come
it.
with it.
I don't know
Come
how
with
many
it.
times we're going to film and how many episodes we're going to do. As far as non-football players, Nick Cooper will probably get mentioned more than anybody.
And he's still,
The
he's still the
ultimate
biggest fan to this day.
Biggest
Oh
fan.
yeah,
Should, yeah.
but and we sit there and we say, what if? And Nick was one of the first ones I remember being born as a kid. I remember seeing as a baby. I was terrified. Every time somebody gets pregnant or anything like that, I still think back to that because Nick's lucky to be here, and he's here. Trust me, everybody knows he's here.
He's here.
But I would love to have seen what Nick and Nathan, his twin brother, possibly could have been. With the medical advancements we have now. Of course, it's a lot better than it was when Nick was born. So it would have been interesting to see would they been like Justin and Clinton Thomas. Nick loves sports. There's no question about that.
That's right.
Anytime I think about Kane and him, I think about going down to Deshler and how we took the whole community into that.
That was one of the greatest.
Sidelines.
It was one of the funnest.
That was a fun night. That was a fun day, but
You
not real
remember
fun
that?
second half if you're an Alabama fan.
They had
I would say that's
a
a count day of the countback.
There's
Not
a
a real good time if you're Josh Green.
there's a restaurant / bar down there.
Oh, we got to tell Josh Grouder on this.
It's called
I'm going to
Sidelines.
break it up.
I wasn't there.
Alabama
I was.
played Auburn. Cam
Great.
Newton.
Heard the story.
I drove.
So I don't even know. I don't remember everybody playing it. I don't even know how it happened. But all of North Jackson shows up at Sidelines to watch the Iron Bowl before we go over to the field. And this is
I
like
want to say Jeremy Googled and saw
Well, no,
This
it was
was-
like it's
and
just
then we all end up.
we're all mutual.
We all
Everybody's
just got
this is like
friends.
a
and
1
you-
o'clock.
Yeah,
2
this
o'clock.
is
Kickoff.
back.
Kickoff's
when
like
they-
1:30
Yeah, this
here.
is back when
This
they
is
moved
1:30
it.
kickoff.
What was it? 2 years in a row they did it.
On
They
Friday.
moved the game.
On Friday.
2 years in a row.
Oh, yeah,
They
North
moved
Jackson
it.
plays at 7. This is 1:30. And everybody's at Sidelines with pictures on the tables. Everywhere. So the first half, of course, Bama was rolling. So all the Bama fans in there owning it, Josh
What was
Grouder.
that? 24-0 at the half.
It was 24-0 at one point. It's like 24-7.
Should have been like 42.
That was
Josh
right before
Josh
the
Grouder
ball
was
rolled
in
and the weird roll. that happened.
Josh Grouder was yodeling. letting them have it.
Standing on stools. Standing on stools.
I can sit here
Tables.
saying
Damn,
SEC championship game tickets going for
And
face
that's
value
the,
now.
that's the only time. That's the only time he's ever done anything like that. Is what makes it.
Well, the night before, there's a reason why he did it the night before, and I'm not going to get into
Well,
that. He always played in a bar.
Every
He just
time,
went-
every time
I'll say
Alabama,
that.
every time Alabama would score, a waitress would grab an Alabama flag and go through the restaurant with it, and all Alabama fans would be cheering. Well, the Auburn flag was never touched the whole first half because we didn't even know they had one. Second half, Auburn starts scoring. Girl starts running through the restaurant with Auburn flag. Well, all Alabama fans are sitting there now. We just keep watching these touchdowns pile up, and then, nobody's really talking on the Alabama side. Auburn scored the Lutzen coaching touchdown, and
All right, Pete.
girl grabs that Auburn flag, gets up, comes to the restaurant. Josh Grouder got up, grabbed that flag from her, which went by with.
Mo
Jackson.
Mo Jackson's time.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jackson. This happened now.
Hey, they threw us out.
Yeah,
They threw us out so fast.
I've been thrown out.
for
I've
that-
been thrown out several places.
We got in our vehicle, and I still had my glass frosty mug in my hand.
It was so fast.
We got thrown out so fast. It was still frosty. I said, my God. I said, they just threw out the whole damn thing.
Everyone else
Jackson
says about
Field, think back, and this is just a little side note. Remember, we get to that stop sign right before you get to Connersville there, and I had told you the night before you had met Chris Potts, and I told you, I said, I've got that impression. We stopped at that stop sign. I hit that Chris Potts for you for the first time. We had traffic backed up because he couldn't drive for laughing. I hit that Chris
I
Potts.
wasn't driving.
Yeah, it was laughing. It was the laughing that made
It
it.
was
But
our-
what do
it
y'all
was our-
remember most about that? The whole time in sidelines, every commercial break.
Yeah,
Everybody hit the
Everybody hit the
chop.
chop.
Everybody hit the
And I remember the table
We
behind
hit.
us was like,
Well,
what
what
they
are
doing,
they
man? This
doing?
is Alabama and Auburn. They doing the chop. I said, man, we're from North Jackson.
We
all
play
do the
Deshler.
chop.
It's the fourth
Yeah,
round
it
of
was,
playoffs.
it was
We're
so
hitting
funny.
chop,
Like
bro.
you had that Alabama table and that Auburn table,
Yeah.
and it was like, and there was some heated words between.
Well, there was a
few
bunch of
them.
people from the community, too, that showed
Yeah,
up early.
just
Well,
showed
they
up.
just-
Yeah. They
All I
showed
remember
up.
is when we got to the game, everybody paid to get in. Everybody went straight to the bathroom.
But that was so funny. Yeah, you talk about that. They were like, we had there's a couple of Auburn fans, and mainly versus Grouder, because every time, you remember that was so funny. Every time Alabama would score, and God, he'd walk over that Auburn table, he'd just like,
Yeah.
Just stand in there.
Just stand up. And it was very funny, but
I think Kitchell was ready to kill.
he was ready to kill
Him and Mike Guess were ready to
Yeah, they were
But
ready.
that was after Josh Goddard also had the record for the longest field goal in a Super 6 championship
Yeah,
game
he did
for
do that.
several years.
But think about that game.
I don't want to think about that game.
I'm talking about the Dashler game.
Okay, good.
So we go to the Dashler game, and during that time frame, I would get off work, go over to Keith's, would be in the garage, and several of the kids would come over, several of the North Jackson kids would watch film. And I remember watching that film with them, and we would talk through adjustments. Of course, they ran G. They didn't run the 4-3 G, but they ran G, so I understood the terminology, this and that. So we talked through some things, and we would watch film. From there, I would help Brady with his homework. Like it was kind of one of those deals. Well, I know it sounds kind of funny to me helping somebody with their homework, but that was legit. But I remember watching the film, and I asked Kane, and Austin Blevins was there. I said, how are we adjusting? Tell me what's the call. And they told me. I said, so, Kane, y'all are flip-flopping in a sense. Because they were bringing Austin up. They ran a wing tee, and they were pretty physical. So they bring Austin up, and Kane would kind of play the safety. I said, all right. I said, so Austin, I said, when they're running the buck sweep to you, what's your job? He said, I take out that guard's kneecaps. I said, why are you going to do that? I said, you're just doing his job for him. If you're on the ground taking him out, you can't make a play on the ball carrier, can you? He said, no, of course I'm going through what I felt like he should do. But what they caught us on is they would run L28 and R27 because they saw how we were adjusting. But I really felt like going into that game, we had a good shot to win that game. You know, they were good, but I felt like we could have beat them.
I got to say, though, Chad brought it up, like being these two guys here beat Dishler. So we can say that. But with that being said, and he'll know this. He'll know this. But just go back to Dashler. We got lucky. No, it ain't much better.
Y'all were up 14-0 on them in like 4 seconds.
You got to tell that story too. While you're talking about that game. That's like Chad's folk, what they did.
But no. Oh no, that's a good one.
Yeah,
we don't need to tell that one. Yeah, but no, that team like. Yes, I'll say. Well, we'll wear that crown. We beat Dishler. We also beat like 20 starting sophomores. That's what that team was.
And that team was a freaking
team was
animal 05 when we went over.
And also, what happened was we jumped up super quick. And then it was literally a slugfest.
It was.
It was
when we talked about the all-time kickoff teams.
Darrell Langford get the ball on the 3-yard line.
Yes.
Brandon
We
Bell
scored 3
recovers
seconds
the
into
ball.
the game, did we?
Yes.
On the 3. Next play, Clayton
Yes.
Seal scores. We're up 7-0 before the game even gets started.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
And then
slugfest.
after
It was
that,
14-0
hold on
fairly
for
quick.
your
And then
And the thing is,
Hold
though,
on for your life.
those sophomores turned into seniors.
real
What
quick.
happened?
They went on a run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
What was the final in that game?
24-17.
Yes.
24-14.
Yes.
24-14. Go on my 10.
I know it was pretty tight.
24-14, yes.
But
The only reason being 24 was up 17.
I'll tell you what, Bucket
17 for Bucket has a scramble
punch.
play.
Yes.
He scrambles on a we run, which we wasn't really going through. It's more or less a quarterback run.
counter.
But he gets outside, reverses his field, and runs about a 37-yard scramble for a touchdown.
But also in that game,
that sealed the game.
opposite side, Bucket had a textbook. Fucking
Strip.
drop
Yes.
the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Drop the
Strips
F-bomb.
ball.
Wasn't going to do it and did it. Wasn't going to do it the whole time and did it. Damn.
Bam.
Bam, got him.
We got in.
Patty and Scarlett, you heard it here.
Sorry.
We'll talk about this tomorrow night at the basketball.
Well, they've already listened to Dr. Dre The Chronic quite a bit. That's our favorite album.
What do you think they're going to listen to tomorrow night before the game?
Do what?
What do you think they're going to listen to tomorrow night before the game?
They've been listening to a lot of Kendrick Lamar.
Y'all got
They
us
do
tomorrow?
not want to listen to the editing.
Yeah, we're playing tomorrow night.
What in the world? I get Ken Folk coaching. My son don't even get on his team.
Hey, his name never even showed up or I'd have got him.
Oh,
must have
trust
pulled
me,
it
we
for him.
already we talked about it behind your back. But Chad don't have a good. We need to get some. Let's get in some hard asses you played with stories.